Hi everybody, thanks for coming out to my tech talk today. We're going to be talking about REST plus HATEOAS and how you can take advantage of that. All right, forgot I had a microphone. So you might be asking yourself, who is this guy and what's he doing here talking about this? Well, I'm Rhodes. I'm a senior software engineer at Vizient, and you can find all the example code for this in this GitHub account here. I have another link at the end. So we're here to talk about REST plus HATEOAS because in our company we have lots of different teams that all need to interact with each other at like an API level. And so that means that in order for me to use your service and you to use my service, there needs to be some sort of consistency across the teams so we can understand how to talk to each other. And something that we're moving toward is using REST plus HATEOAS. We're already pretty RESTful, but by providing the extra information of HATEOAS, we're really going to be able to make the discoverability of our APIs a lot easier. So when we talk about discovery and APIs, what we're really kind of talking about is the Richardson maturity model. That is how well developed or how, well aged, how mature your API is. It has 4 levels. So like all programming things, we start at 0. And that is if you're not even using URLs. Examples of this in real life are like SOAP endpoints or remote control protocols. They have URLs that represent how to get to commands and how to do things, but they don't have identifiers for the individual entities that you're worried about interacting with. Step 1, start using those guys. If you start thinking about the URL being the location of an actual thing, you can start really getting your head around a good RESTful design. And so the next step is we want to talk about the HTTP methods that we're using. We want to limit it down and scope it down to 4, maybe 5. And then when you hit the final level, you have metadata about the entities. So not just like, what is this thing, but why do I care about it? What information is related to it? What else can I do with it? So what is REST? We'll just start there. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. REST is a client-server architecture where you have clients that are asking for resources from different servers. This connection is stateless, and you'll see that to get the full value out of REST, keeping it stateless is very important. It's cacheable, so you can build in a nice caching layer to help with your performance. And it has a uniform interface. That way we can interact with it and not really have to think too hard about how we're doing it. If we do all this, we can create a nice layered system where you don't have one service that's doing the work for everyone. And also means you don't have to use SOAP anymore. All right, so why use REST? The biggest one's consistency, especially as your team scales up and you start having a lot more people on the team. The next is that cacheability layer, really gets the performance there. And then versionability. If you're working with a bunch of other teams and you have changes that you need to make, you don't want to break that API for the other people that are there. So you need to have a plan for how am I going to change and yet keep it the same. And then platform independence. I'm sure we all are working in mixed environments where you have Windows machines and Linux servers and other things that you only have for this one project because you have to use it because that's what the company bought with me. And having it be platform independent means you don't get locked in on anything. You don't become dependent on any software stack. And then it's also scalable. If you are working on a project and it's become successful, at some point you're going to have to ramp it up. And by keeping the connection stateless, you're able to ramp up on the fly and ramp out without having to be concerned about what happens when my client starts talking to a different server all of a sudden. And that's the most important reason. It makes you look smart and handsome to use REST. Sounds good, looks good on the resume. All right, so how should we REST? How are we actually going to achieve this? So the first thing is we're going to have to change the way we're thinking about our network calls. What are you guys looking at? Oh, no, it broke. Did that earlier. Let me try to drop the connection and reconnect. Connect my device. It's a little better. I try that cable connect to. Alright. So this doesn't really matter for the PowerPoint, but I've got some code examples that I want to show folks. So I'll just go through this here and miss my names, I guess, for a little bit. So like I was saying, whenever you're building a good REST API, you want to focus on the resources that you're going to be sharing on it first. The reason we want to do that is because by focusing on resources, we can enforce that statelessness. We want to start thinking in nouns and stop thinking in verbs. And then when it comes time to think about the verbs, we want to limit to 4, maybe 5. Then also, eventually there's going to come someone who's going to want every one of your largest entries. So for us, at Vizient, it's probably like products. When that comes, you want to just go ahead and build in paging and filtering up front. Okay, so now it's not verbs. We need to start thinking in resources. So let's say that what our business did is that we sold cars. And we want to have some way that the person who's entering it can call into the back end and record that, hey, we sold this car. So if we're thinking in nouns, what we're doing is we're adding a new sale to our database. We're not selling a car. So when you're building your API, instead of having an endpoint that's something like /sellcar/ID, you'll want to make something that's like sale/ID or sales/ID. Or if you're making a new sale, post to that sales endpoint. And by continuing that model, we can also think about like objects' relations to each other. So like let's say a car had an owner. If you just had the sell car endpoint, we'd have to make another endpoint that was something like find car owner or get car owner or something like that. Instead, what you can do is you can use that same structure so it becomes easier for your user to navigate by saying car/ID/owner/ID if they get multiple owners or if they get multiple IDs. And then if you want properties off that owner, you can do /name or whatever. Pause 1 second, hope this works. Yeah, it's going to be Winnie the Pooh, Lady Arguing with Cat. Okay, So now that we've thought about about nouns, let's refocus on the verbs that we're going to have. So like I said before, we're going to reduce that HTTP set of words we can use like put, get, etc. We're going to narrow it down to 4. The first one's going to be get, and it's probably going to be your most complicated one. Because usually your get can do 2 things. It can either get like a list of all of our cars, or it can get one individual car. And by doing that, you kind of to help the user understand that like, if I want all of something, I just call for the endpoint. If I need a specific thing, I'll tell it which one I want from that endpoint. Post adds a resource. So if we're going to add a new car, we would say, we would post to the car's endpoint with all the information we need about our new car. Put updates a resource. I know there's someone in the crowd who's probably thinking Patch does that too, but we'll talk about Patch in a little bit. Put always updates a resource that already exists, so you shouldn't allow the put to create a new resource whenever you try to put it there. And then delete removes a resource. And so get, put, and delete are all IDM potent. And that means that if you do them once and then do them again, you don't get any further state change past the first time you do it. So let's think about getting a car. If I get a car once, I get the car. If I do get a car again, I get the same car, and there's no difference. Post isn't one of them, sorry. Put, let's say I change the car's color to red, and then I change the car's color to red. The end result of both of those is the car's color is red. And then if I delete a car, and then delete a car, the car is still deleted. This is important because this helps us with that statelessness. Since you don't have to worry about things happening more than once and causing errors in your database or whatever it's using to represent the entities, you can feel free to repeat calls that you aren't sure may have failed. Now the one you do have to worry about is post, because if you add a new car and then add a new car, you have 2 new cars. And that sounds good, but you gotta pay that sales tax on them. Let's talk about patch. Patch is just an incomplete put. If you feel that you really need to patch your objects because they're so large and it's so computationally difficult to send back the entire code, your object is too large and you need to cut it down. That's a different topic, but. All right, let's talk about versioning and how we're going to do it. So this is a bad example of how to write an API. API there stands for whatever the domain that you're working in. For us, we'll say it's Vizient.com. If I do API/cars, then if I need to change how that car's endpoint works, everyone who is using /cars is going to have to account for those changes. And sometimes that's not practical. And if you have customers that are buying your API service, then you have just put a cost on them that might make them want to move to a different provider. So instead, you can represent the versioning by including it in the URL. So in this case, we have API/v1 cars. And now whoever starts using v1 can continue using it when you make v2, v3, v4. Now there's other ways that you can handle versioning, but you want to handle it because you don't want to give customers do things just to burn down the things they rely on. So one of the ways that you can do versioning if you don't want to do it through the URL is you can put it in the header and then do content negotiation whenever you make that connection to the endpoint. Check to see which version of the model that it will accept and then negotiate out which one it's going to end up giving it to. That's a lot of work in my opinion. Another way that's about as easy as putting it in the URL is just having the objects themselves know what version they are. So if you hit against the car's endpoint and it returns a version 2 model and the person's expecting version 1, as long as you have told them in advance, hey, whenever you receive models, check the version, you can have them check the version and say, oh, that's not version 1, I need version 1. And then the object could have in it a link so that you could go get version 1 or create a version 1 out of itself. That's also a lot of work. However, sometimes that one becomes necessary because you are working with a system that's already been built without versioning thought of. So the next thing we want to talk about is the statuses that can be returned. Just like the verbs, we want to limit them down to a subset so that we know what it means without really having to think about it. So the ones that we're going to use are 200. Okay, everything's cool. Worked as expected. 201, created. All right, I made your thing. It's good. Sometimes you want to send back a copy. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Whichever way you do it, though, you want to be consistent so your user will know, hey, whenever I post something, I'll get it back with all my IDs filled out or whatever the concern is. 202, this is like, I'm working on it, get back with me. So if you have something that's computationally expensive, you can send back a 202, and then with it, send a link to where you can pick up the work when it's done, and they can check back at that link so they can pick it up at a time that's either convenient or they'll just pull you to death. Probably you want a different solution like a message queue. Probably some message queue. 404, not found. I looked for your resource, but it wasn't there. 204, oops, I skipped one. 204, no content. Usually that's stuff like delete, where you just want to say, hey, it worked. And then put. Put's weird. And there's kind of some inconsistencies on how it's actually implemented in the real world. A lot of people will do it as a 200, because it's, okay, I did the put. Some people will do 201, okay, I made your change. So if you have an opinion that's very strong, you should stick with it and always do that. Again, that way your user understands what is going to happen whenever I use a put. I should expect a 200, I should expect a 201. That consistency is what we're really getting out of being thoughtful in our REST designs. Okay, and this is kind of where the real world starts, REST versus RESTful. I'm sure you've seen APIs that describe themselves as RESTful, and what they're saying is, hey, I live in the real world, and I got two choices, be perfect or don't get it done. So, whenever you find yourself back into that corner, realize you probably are, and if there was one solution for everything, we just use it for everything. You also might have a personal preference. Let me tell you about something our company does, which is kind of like a personal preference. I guess it's a company preference. So we had a service that would check the price of an item. And if an item doesn't have a price, it would return a 404 because we didn't find a price. Makes sense. We got a new tool called DevOps Genie, something like that. And what it did is it just monitored how many error requests that your service throws out. And so we had a customer that ran through an invoice for lots of items and lots of new items that haven't been given prices yet in our system. So all of a sudden, our pricing service is throwing thousands and thousands of errors per hour. And of course, DevOps is worried about this because DevGenie says, oh, it's producing a lot of errors, there's something wrong. Well, not really, like the prices aren't in it. That's the expected behavior. So in that case, we chose to do 204s instead, saying, hey, there's no content, but nothing went wrong. That way it wouldn't trip that monitoring software. And also sometimes there's just new ideas that are better. Has anyone played around with GraphQL? Yeah, so like, if you have really complex objects that are legitimately complex, or you don't know what you need off of them, maybe REST isn't the right solution. Maybe you should just look at something else. And if you do, be consistent with how you're using that too, because I still think the most value in all of this is the consistency. Okay, so that's step one, REST. I think probably a little more common than HATEOAS because HATEOAS just doesn't have a lot of adoption yet. And I think that's mostly because of the name. So HATEOAS just simply stands for Hypermedia as the engine of application state. So what is that actually? Basically, its resources are linked to related information, so it's easier to figure out things about them. That's it. So for example, let's say this is going to be a person that has HATEOAS implemented on him. So his name is Simon. That's the only actual piece of data in this thing. But what we're also going to provide are links These are the related resources, or resources that it thinks you should be aware of. So one link that we always provide is the self link. That just tells you how do you get to that object. In this case, you go to person/Simon to find it. It can also tell you things that also might be of interest to you, such as he has a son. You can find him at person/Frank. But why do you want to do this? It's a lot of extra work, right? It's because it makes your API discoverable. By providing the links, you are eliminating the need for the consumer to understand the structure of your API completely. Versioning gets a lot easier because now you don't have to worry about whether or not they're using the right version in the URL, or have the right headers, or are negotiating the right content to get the right version. You can just provide in the links to the other versions. And it helps you take advantage of microservices. If you ever you get a pretty big microservice swarm, you're probably going to have like a discovery type service and a director. So lots of times the client has baked in knowledge about that, so it knows which microservice to call. But if you have just an entry point where you can start consuming the API and following the links, suddenly you remove the client from even needing to know about how your microservice swarm is structured. And you can offload that responsibility to the individual services, thus decoupling the two so you can change things easier. So how do we do this? First of all, just like when we were talking about nouns in REST, we really need to start thinking about relationships in HATEOAS. How are these two pieces of information related? And does anyone care about that relationship? And the first relation that's the most important is that self. It might seem kind of silly because don't I have the object already? Well, yeah, but if we stop thinking about its ID as a key in the database and start thinking about this resource is located on a server, really, the self-reference becomes the ID. Kind of along the same lines also as REST, you're still using the same 4, maybe 5 verbs. And so if you have a link to like Simon's son, if you needed to do a put on Simon's son and change his name, then you could apply the put method to it. And you already have the information that you need because it's provided that link to the object. So that's the end of the slideshow part. If you really like to explore more of REST, RESTfulapi.net is a fantastic resource. And then there's some excellent Spring technology that they have. And there's a guide on Bail Demo, which everyone loves. And if you want an example of this code, you can go to BlakeRhodes/DungeonBase on GitHub, which takes us to kind of a visual example of how to use this, to use HATEOAS like you were the client. So now clearly, you would want some sort of UI if you're playing a video game, right? Oh, I'm not going to show that yet, but you're right. But let's say you were like really on a budget and just couldn't make one. What you might do is something like this. Let me make sure everything's started up. Okay, everyone kind of see that text, or should I make it bigger? Okay, who here has played Dungeons and Dragons before? Nice. How many people here have played the Lost Mines of Phandelver? Okay, it's one of the starter adventures, and this is that adventure presented as HATEOAS information. So here we are at the start. You have a description. You've been following, got ambushed by goblins, by the way. You're following the goblins, and you come across the large cave in the hillside, 5 miles from the scene of the ambush. In the related section, you have the areas that are adjacent. And then down here in the links, you have how to get to them. So if I knew the entry point to this, and I knew that, hey, and there's going to be a list called related, and I can just pull out the name from that, and the links it'll take me to there, I don't care what it actually is on any of the servers anywhere. So where do you guys want to go? Do you want to go into the goblin blind or into the cave mouth?
Cave mouth.
Cave mouth, brave. All right, so you go inside there. You have your description still, and then this connects to many places. And in the links, you can see that not only are there each of those different rooms, but there's also some players and some items. So if I want to see what the players are, I can click on that and take a look. Oh, it's Father Simon, my cleric. He's hanging out here in this goblin cave. He has his self-link, of course, the location, cave mouth, and he also has his items on him, so we can check his items. He has a Rod of the Pack Keeper. Don't ask why my cleric's a warlock. So we go back to where he's at. So since we found an adventurer here, if I wanted to add another adventurer, it probably looks something like that player link. So I could say, all right, let's get a player link, and let's add a player. I'm going to post a player, and what should we name our player? I guess character.
Bob Ross.
Bob Ross. Uh-oh. Oh, sorry, I haven't updated these. The one. There we go. So it posted Bob Ross, gave his location. We can check out, see where he's at. I think it starts at the start. Yep, it starts back at the start. And I don't really have to know about the player any more than, hey, I've gotten a player once before. Same thing for like items. Let's say I wanted to add some more loot because I just feel this adventure doesn't have enough rewards in it. So I'm going to post an item. I'm going to post a +1 longsword, and we're going to put it at this location, which I don't remember exactly what it is, but we can find out. All right, cool. Now it's at this location. So we go there, and we can see, oh, it's the cave mouth again. Yeah, we've been there before. Now it has our one player, and it has our 2 items. I think this one, this is a longsword. Yeah, there's the longsword. So now Father Simon's there, and he's not going to just leave a longsword laying around. That doesn't make any sense. So he's going to pick it up. And I know I can pick it up because I have the item. And I know who Father Simon is, except for, I'm going to actually look it up real quick. Father Simon is this fellow. So now I can just do a put. No, wrong put. We're not going to update that. Actually, I'm going to do this real quick. Post is going to take this object. I brought this trap hole to make this easier and completely forgot about it. Copy. And then we're going to put an item. Looks good. And then we just need to change the location. And we've changed the location to here. I think it's smart enough to ignore these. I usually do that, but we'll find out. Nope. And that's because it doesn't know the longsword ID because I just made it. So let's grab that location, and then I want to find that longsword that was at the location. Just this guy. And need to change it up here also. And here, which I think this one's the same. Yeah. And there we go. Now, when we look at the location, my cleric has it. And so whenever we meet up with Bob Ross, I'll give him that longsword because that's too much work, swinging a sword. So does anyone have any questions about REST+HATEOAS and how you can use it? Good, I did a good job.
I got one.
All right.
How complicated is it to set up?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Let's take a look at the code. So this is the REST controller for items. This is all written in Java with Spring Boot. And so here I have my REST controller. I've mapped it out to v1/items. And it has a service for providing the actual information. And we'll look at the get. So if you just call the endpoint by itself, it is going to take and find all and just wrap that up in an item response and return. If you do an individual get, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to wrap up the item that we get out of the database and put it into a item response. So what is an item response? This is a class that we made, and it implements, oh no, sorry, this one doesn't implement anything. Yes, sorry. It extends the representational model, which is a class that's provided by Spring Boot. And it tells what you're going to represent, and then it has the properties that will be relevant to it. And then you create this section, annotated with @JSON creator, that tells it, hey, when you go to serialize this, throw this information in there. So in this case, we're just taking the item that we're given and copying over all the fields, and then using these methods to build up the links. So what's really nice, in my opinion, is you can add links just by the controller. So if we break this down, this .add will add the link to the object. You'll use a helper function that they wrote, link to, a method on some controller, in this case the item controller class, the method that you want to use, get, passing in what you would normally put in your request, and then with whatever the reference is, in this case it's the self that got one built in, or for the location, you can just give it the name and add that location on there. So you're gonna have to make responses anyway, right? You're not gonna just like send raw models back to someone. That's probably going to be too expensive in the long run for you, time-wise. So you're not having to write any more to create the response class. And if you really want to get crazy, you can do even less. Oh, I think it's the wrong Kotlin. Oh, no, here we go. So this is my Kotlin version. This just does the location record. It doesn't do the rest of the stuff. But for it, I made the class, and then source, name, Kotlin. I made this repository for the location, which is just calling out that it is the location repository, and that it's based off the CRUD repository. And since this interface is public, you can use Spring Data REST, and it will automatically take all of your repositories and you have to use JPA, or I'm using Mongo for this, but you have to have some entity manager for it to do this. And it will create that entity and all the linked objects for you. You don't even have to write the controller code.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to ask. It seems like this should be able to be automatically generated for you.
Yep. Good question.
So it's one line code there.
2 lines technically, because I had to make the data class also, so 2 lines of code.
It's pretty neat.
Any
So
other?
is that something specific to Java? I mean, does it have other, I guess the other languages have this sort of auto-generating capabilities?
So from what
You know of them, at least?
from what I found, that's a good question. The Java languages, they all can use Spring Boot. They're going to have it. .NET has limited support for it. Microsoft doesn't have any NuGet packages that specifically support it that they've made. And that's because, like, in my experience, a lot of their stuff is really, they're wanting to use XML to do the talking. There are some like third-party libraries that have been made, for .NET, but I find that they're incomplete. But it's not that hard to write this stuff yourself. It's just nice to not have to.
Right.
Anybody else? All right. Awesome. Thanks for putting up the technical difficulties, and thanks for coming out.